Welcome once again to the offices of the Game Detectives.
As both David and I grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s, we had a lot of experience with a type of gameplay that isn't really around anymore. Local multiplayer gaming.
In today's world of esports and MOBAs, you can't really get that true multiplayer experience that Travis and I had when we were kids. But in the 5th generation of video games, local multiplayer was all the rage, especially for the racing genre. But which of these racing games that were popular at the time are actually the best? Here are the cold hard facts.
Ever since Super Mario Kart became a smash hit, gaming companies who wanted to make a quick buck threw their hats into the racing game ring. After the broad success of Mario Kart 64, Rareware decided to produce their own racing game, titled Diddy Kong Racing. Sony, looking to make a mascot out of Crash Bandicoot, made Crash Team Racing.
Now, these were 3 different games with 3 extremely similar audiences, all released around the same time, which means there were a lot of competition between the 3. But which of these games is actually the best? And which one holds up best today? In our Day at the Races, we'll compare each game in a variety of categories to see how they really stack up.
First, we'll compare the game's single-player modes. Mario Kart 64 doesn't have much of a single-player mode. You compete in each of 4 cups to unlock a mirror mode. It's obviously meant to be a multiplayer game. However, each variation of the single-player racing game copies or takes from Mario Kart 64. It is the trailblazer of the single-player game, but arguably, Diddy Kong Racing and Crash Team Racing do it even better.
Unlike Mario Kart 64, Diddy Kong Racing introduces and includes arguably the best single-player adventure mode experience. This adventure mode is completely different from Mario Kart's single-player experience, in that you get to navigate an entire island with your kart or hovercraft or plane, and there are plenty of secrets to explore in the island itself. The game chooses to introduce a hub world similar to other Rare platformers of the era into this racing game.
In Diddy Kong Racing, you can also collect balloons to open up racetracks in each of the 5 sections of the game: Dino Domain, Snowflake Mountain, Sherbert Island, Dragon Forest, and Future Funland. You have to race bosses, win trophy races, and unlock 4 different multiplayer games, which you must then beat to reach the final boss. The adventure mode in Diddy Kong Racing is engaging because the races exist in a complex world you have to save from a menacing pig demon, and gives the simplest of storylines to the single-player mode, making it fun and engaging.
Crash Team Racing also has an adventure-like single-player mode, but it lacks the innovation of Diddy Kong Racing. Crash Team Racing copies Diddy Kong Racing almost to a T, complete with items you have to collect, bosses you race, and extra trials on each track. But, unlike Diddy Kong Racing, Crash Team Racing lacks the unifying island that Diddy Kong Racing has, and each world exists without a hub world connection. This makes Diddy Kong Racing's world feel a little more fleshed out, simply because there is more than just the tracks in the 3D setting. Crash Team Racing single player is enjoyable, but it feels like a carbon copy. Crash Team Racing compensates this by having more of a story than Diddy Kong Racing, complete with cutscenes, making the story feel a little more fleshed out than Diddy Kong Racing's.
Next up is the actual multiplayer mode of each game. Each game chooses to go about the multiplayer mode differently to varying amounts of success. Mario Kart gives 2 main options for multiplayer mode: race against your friends on the tracks or competing in battles. You can race in cups if you are racing with 2 people, but if you want to include 3 or 4 players, you can only race individual tracks. Even worse, the music in the game completely cuts out during these multiplayer matches, which causes the game to lose some of that exciting atmosphere. Finally, Mario Kart 64 includes a battle mode, which you can attempt to pop the other racers' balloons before they pop yours by attacking them with objects used in races. It's a creative addition to the game, but it's not earth-shattering in any way.
Diddy Kong Racing's multiplayer mode copies Mario Kart 64 almost exactly, with just a few tweaks thrown in. You can compete in both individual tracks and trophy races, which are equivalent to Mario Kart 64's cups, with up to 4 players. Unfortunately, just like Mario Kart 64, there's no music in these races due to lack of hardware. Diddy Kong Racing also adds in a battle mode type game based on the first 4 worlds in Diddy Kong Racing, but not all are created equal. Darkwater Beach and Icicle Pyramid are both battle games in the vein of Mario Kart 64 battles, where you have to reduce your opponent's bananas to 0 before you run out yourself.
Darkwater Beach lacks an easy multiplayer play, because the hovercraft controls can be finicky for new players. But Icicle Pyramid, which focuses on the use of cars, is easy for even the newest player to compete in because the car controls are simple. The horribly named Fire Mountain has the worst battle, as you focus on transporting and hatching dinosaur eggs. It's a unique take on battles, but one that fails because it adds waiting to a racing game, something that should never happen. Smoky Castle from the Dragon Forest world operates similarly to Fire Mountain, where you have to collect bananas and bring them back to your treasure chest without losing them. However, Smoky Castle operates much better because you can move constantly and even deposit your bananas.
Crash Team Racing's multiplayer mode operates very similarly to the other two racing games. You can compete locally up to 4 players in either races, cups, or battle games. Because Crash Team Racing was on the PlayStation, you can actually listen to the music in the multiplayer mode, which adds the air of excitement to the competition that the other two games didn't have.
All 3 of these racing games see a vast variety and quality of track design. Mario Kart 64 benefits from having several monumental tracks in the game, including Rainbow Road and Bowser's Castle. These tracks are classics of the genre, but many of the other tracks feature such simple designs that they become extremely repetitive and boring to look at. Overall, Mario Kart 64 has serviceable tracks that help establish 3D racing games, but do little in terms of unique variations. Toad's Turnpike, DK's Jungle Parkway, and other tracks do stand out, but too many boring tracks like Calamari Desert, Luigi Raceway, and Mario Raceway fail to make a mark on the game.
Diddy Kong Racing, on the other hand, has fewer of those memorable and remarkable tracks that Mario Kart 64 did, but has a much more even consistency and quality than its predecessor. Part of the success of Diddy Kong Racing's tracks stems from the fact that the tracks are divided up into 5 different themed cups. Each of the themes, prehistoric, beach, winter, medieval, and futuristic, have distinct aesthetics, and gives each of the tracks the opportunity to give a unique take on the particular theme. For example, in Dragon Forest, there's one track that centers around a castle, one on a medieval town, one on windmills, and one on a haunted forest and town. These themes are fun, but it makes it hard for individual tracks to stick out as distinctly as those in Mario Kart 64. However, there still are some great tracks. Hot Top Volcano, Haunted Woods, Star City, and Walrus Cove all benefit from distinct features and geographical markers that make them stick out from the surrounding tracks.
Like Diddy Kong Racing, Crash Team Racing benefits from having an even consistency in track design. However, there are no distinct unifying themes of the tracks like in Diddy Kong Racing. And really, there are only 2 standouts in CTR, Sewer Speedway and Oxide Station. The rest of the tracks in Crash Team Racing are similar to Diddy Kong Racing. There aren't enough defining features or truly unique designs to make them stand out. Crash Team Racing probably has the best consistency of the 3, but sometimes consistency can become extremely repetitive if there is no spice added to it.
One thing that benefits tracks in racing games is great soundtracks. Mario Kart 64 has a serviceable soundtrack, but the songs for each track tend to be more subdued than necessary for a racing game. For example, the music for DK's Jungle Parkway lacks any kind of memorable melody, and the percussive beats behind the music fail to stand out. Better sound mixing would have assisted pieces like these in the game. Emphasizing the percussion and giving the melodies more unique instrumentation would make these themes more memorable. In addition, Mario Kart 64 repeats melodies over multiple tracks. While all 3 games do repeat songs, Mario Kart 64 repeats the most, making the individual tracks less interesting.
Diddy Kong Racing improves upon Mario Kart 64 soundtrack exponentially. Most importantly, each track theme is upbeat and percussion-driven, giving the players a fast-paced feeling to the game. Diddy Kong Racing also tailors the instrumentation and melodies to fit with each track and also the themed world that track resides in. For example, the snow levels rely heavily on instruments associated with Christmas, such as sleigh bells or chimes, and some of the tracks even sample Christmas carols. While there are a few tracks, especially in the beginning of the game, that rely on generic racing music tropes, most of these songs incorporate that rare flair that works perfectly with the in-game world.
Crash Team Racing includes many of the same faults that Mario Kart 64 had in terms of the soundtrack. Overall, the music tends to resemble generic racing music more than unique and memorable themes. Crash Team Racing does include lots of percussion in the tracks, which makes the music more of a driving force behind the game. However, the lack of truly memorable music and melodies makes it very similar to the tracks of the game. Presentable, but not really challenging or intriguing. Simply, it adds nothing new.
The next must-have for any racing game is the items. Each game goes about using items in different ways. Mario Kart 64 chooses to base many of the items in the game off of Mario items used in other games, such as green shells and red shells and mushrooms. Most importantly, each of the items work to balance each other out, so you can zoom ahead with the mushrooms, but also take an opponent out with a lightning bolt if need be. Each item has a check and balance, and the chances of getting each item depend on where you are in the race, making it possible for racers in last place to make a last-minute comeback, which adds excitement to the game.
In Diddy Kong Racing, there are 5 major types of balloons: rocket, turbo, trap, barrier, and magnet. By driving into the same type of balloon multiple times, you can get even more powerful versions of each item. Unfortunately, only rocket and turbo balloons make a real difference when racing, making 3 out of the 5 balloon groups obsolete. You can easily avoid the traps of others without relying on barriers, making both barriers and traps useless. The magnet items also barely seem to work at all, but when they do, you often get thrown off track due to momentum. So, the items in DKR are one of the few glaring weaknesses of that game.
Crash Team Racing opts for the Mario Kart 64 formula, almost copying every item. There are items that become road hazards, beakers, homing devices, rockets, invincibility items, Uka Uka, and the like. While Crash Team Racing does add some quirks to the items, like the ability to shake off the TNT boxes, the items in the game are the most obvious ripoff from Mario Kart. While they are balanced well, it again shows a lack of originality and creativity in the game.
Finally, we'll take a look at the characters of the game. Mario Kart 64 benefits from having a cast of memorable characters that almost every person who has played games will know. Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, Wario, Donkey Kong, etc. were all household names for gamers by this point. Racing as these characters plays on people's nostalgia. After all, it wouldn't be Mario Kart if there weren't Mario characters.
Diddy Kong Racing, on the other hand, uses almost an entirely new cast of characters, taking away that nostalgia that Mario Kart 64 had. However, all of the characters in the game are different animals and each has a detailed design, making them more memorable than what could be expected. Diddy Kong Racing also improves on Mario Kart 64 by giving each of the characters different racing stats. So Pipsy has a lower speed but quicker turning, and Crunch has a higher top speed but handles atrociously. All of Mario Kart 64's characters handle exactly the same, while Diddy Kong Racing lets you choose a character that fits your playstyle.
Finally, Crash Team Racing combines the best of both games when it comes to characters. CTR uses the memorable characters from the Crash games in the racing game, giving it that nostalgic feel similar to Mario Kart 64. But each character handles differently, allowing you to select which character fits best for your playstyle, very similar to Diddy Kong Racing. Most importantly, the game explicitly tells you the stats of each racer, unlike DKR, making it easier to see which character fits best.
It's time for the final verdicts. Mario Kart 64 is the original, the reason for racing games that feature characters from other gaming genres. It's fun to drive as characters you've known and loved, and see all the different environments that feature enemies and characters from other Mario games. While having no single-player mode is disappointing, Mario Kart 64 is meant to be a party game hands down, as it is the smoothest learning curve of the 3. The game is a little rough around the edges, but overall, a great game for the era.
Diddy Kong Racing is the response to Mario Kart. Overall, it's a little more polished than MK64. It copies a lot from the Mario Kart games, but adds in the adventure mode and adds new characters that don't come from pre-existing games. In fact, many of the characters featured in Diddy Kong Racing were planned to start their own games, such as Banjo. It has the rare collectibles like balloons and coins, but puts them seamlessly into a racing game.
Crash Team Racing has the tightest controls and best graphics, but it seems like a carbon copy of the previous games. It's designed to be in the same vein of Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing, and takes its adventure mode, time trial, versus, and battle modes from those games. It feels a little stale compared to the others, simply because it operates in the exact same way as the other games. Not as unique, but still serviceable and very fun.
All three of these games are enjoyable and unique, and fans of each franchise will love racing around with these characters, music, and tracks based around games they like. And any of these games would work well. It really depends on what you're looking for in the game.
Mario Kart introduces the basics and defines the genre. Diddy Kong Racing adds the rare spin and the much-needed adventure mode. Crash controls the best and has the best graphics, but lacks originality. Now, personally, I prefer Crash Team Racing.
And for me, I prefer the ingenuity of Diddy Kong Racing. But there's no clear-cut winner. It really is up to you. So that was our look into Mario Kart 64, Diddy Kong Racing, and Crash Team Racing. Was our final verdict correct, or is there one game that is truly better than the others?
Make your case down in the comments.